When you're looking for someone to pick up your buffet order, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And Casey.
And Jesse.
Oh, it has been a hot time for me over the last weekend, I swear to God.
A hot time.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the news reports about somebody who decided to light cars on fire during Anime Los Angeles.
I
just saw a headline of that just 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, guess where I was last weekend?
Yes, you were.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't staying at that hotel, thank goodness. I was staying in an adjacent one. But it is kind of creepy to wake up the next day, and as you're eating a communal breakfast, half the people around you are talking about, so, was it your car that was on fire last night? No, it wasn't mine either. And that makes you question a lot.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I knew the person who was targeted by that.
Yeah, it's actually a personal friend of Joanna's.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what a small world.
Seriously.
It is, especially in like the convention cosplay. It's such a tight-knit community, and so the fact that I know her and we're good friends, I just kind of feel strongly about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the investigation isn't quite over yet. They have a suspect under arrest at the very least, but I'm going to leave that sit only because this is a very deep rabbit hole to get involved in.
Yeah.
Although I will say, while I was at Anime Los Angeles, I did arrange to have 4 women meet me at my hotel room, had microphones set up, and the plan was to do like just 4 fun-style radio play of the first couple issues of Rat Queens. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the women dropped out like a few days before, but one of the others decided to bring her friend to play the extra role. I had to play everything that involved testicles, unfortunately. But it was kind of funny because by the time we finished the first 2 issues, there was a lot of laughing to be had and people were enjoying themselves. And I looked at the clock and said, you know what? We are finished 45 minutes early. This is awesome. And
wow.
Oh, wait. Before I can even close it out, one of them looks up at me from beneath the microphone and says, can we do one more? I'm sorry, what? And all of them just said, yeah, I have another couple hours free. Can we do a little more of this?
Nice.
So we ended up going through issue 3, and that wasn't even on my plan. The only reason they were upset by the end was that they were just saying, we wanted to finish this volume. We really wanted to get to this whole wall fight thing. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of flabbergasted, especially since at the end I found out 3 out of the 4 women were all staffers at Anime Los Angeles, and one of them I told him, you know, if this worked out well, I was thinking about it submitting as a panel in the future, and she just said, oh yeah, I staff at Anime California, put my name as a panelist, put my name as a reference, and we'll get this going. This is awesome.
Nice. See, I'm a little jealous I'm not local. Totally do that.
You know, it's like this whole wrestling thing all over again.
Well, I listened to a bit of the raw audio. We only had 3 volumes to share amongst us, and I forgot my laptop, so I was walking around a little bit. I come across a little tinny, but everybody was having such fun, and they were just the smiles on their faces reading the dialogue. And I actually had to ask the question, you know, you drop like several F-bombs and several shits and all this other stuff in the middle of this dialogue. Why is it as soon as somebody says Bilford Bogan, all of a sudden it's, hey, watch your language? So, yeah, I expect to submit that in the near future. How's everybody else going?
Well, I haven't had such a glorious time as you, although I had some excitement.
Yeah, well, it's not like my time was as hot as others, but there it is. What did you do?
Well, Tuesday, I left work, came back a little bit later to get my paycheck, and had a really interesting time with a patron in our restroom.
Why, did he try to furlough you or something?
Oh, no, this is one of our regulars who left a good enough impression on me that I refer to this person as bitch.
Okay. That's subtle. Subtle.
Oh, no, I am not going to be subtle with this person.
Okay.
This person has one of our vagrants decided to take a bath or shower, whatever they do in the restroom that none of us who worked at like.
Mm-hmm.
So every time she comes in to ask for the restroom key, I tell her no.
Okay.
So I gave her a dad no. And she goes over my head, goes over my head and talks to the boss, whose office is in the back of the lot. He gets his key. And then she goes in there, and 30 minutes later, he hasn't gotten the key back. He goes in there to check what's going on. He gets pissed that she's not leaving. And after about another 2 hours, we ended up having to call the cops just to get her the hell out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Classy.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we eventually do get her out. The cop talks to her, tells her to go away. There's a long conversation there where she seems the type of person who has to have the last word.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So she finally left. I decided to check the damages, if any. And she tagged it up with cartoon horses, hearts, and peace signs in Valentine's Day colors.
Nice.
What?
You should really let people know the next time Lindsay Lohan comes by to use the bathroom.
Yeah. The cop was still there when we found out about that, so he drove off to the local hooker hotels and found them.
Mm.
Man, it must have been a boring day.
Everyone decided at that, by the time that happened, everyone had shown up to pick up their paychecks, and we're all just discussing this.
Wow.
We did have her officially arrested.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm kind of waiting for the retaliation if she ever comes back.
Yeah. Well, watch out for your car. Apparently now they light him on fire.
Yeah, seriously.
Joanna, how's it going?
It's going really well. I started a new job today, so that
Congrats.
was fun. Yeah, thank you. Orientation, they kind of hurl info at you.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Stuff
I think it's
nobody
a good
listens
fit.
to. Yeah.
I mean, I did. I took notes. But, I'm the Hermione Granger of the class,
Right.
so...
Oh my gosh. Casey, what you got?
I have been overdosing on Ghostbusters stuff. If nothing else, I like to hyper-focus on one thing at a time.
So basically you're getting a big nose full of Chris Hemsworth.
No, I didn't really care for the reboot. I started grabbing a whole bunch of books because I had a nice credit over at Amazon. So I got stuff like the Tobin Spirit Guide and the Ectomobile Haynes Owner's Workshop Manual.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And I decided I was going to watch the Ghostbusters film on Netflix because it's on there and get past all the scenes that really don't showcase the guys. So all the Dana Barrett scenes are getting edited out, and I don't really care much for Rick Tully or whatever the guy's name is. And I just want to focus on all the tech and all the stuff. And so 2 films became like an hour long, me watching them play with toys kind of stuff.
Huh. Louis Tully.
Nerd.
Yes, that's it. I don't know. I've been thinking about getting involved in the very active Ghostbusters community.
The Ecto-O's?
I don't know if that's what they're called. I just see lots of hobbyists with their gear and stuff like that, and I've always like, man, that looks really cool. But I don't have enough hobbyist in me to be able to actually put together something as fine and technical as that. But just the lore. I mean, yeah, okay, we're talking about 2 comedy films in the 80s and the 90s, but Dan Aykroyd put a healthy amount of lore in it if you really sit down and look at it.
Mm.
So that's kind of what I've been doing, sitting down and looking at it.
All right.
Fun. Is it weird that I've never seen those movies?
Not
You
entirely.
should. I would talk your ear off about all the nuances of it once you get past the fact you just sat down and watched 2 comedy films from 28
Grab a pillow.
Well, let me watch them through and then watch them again with you, and you can tell me about the nuance. I like lore, so maybe that'll work.
Yeah, I don't think you can sit there and watch it with me because I can recite like the first movie pretty much word for word. It's annoying as hell.
I promise never to do that to a friend. I will
I've
never
seen
recite
clips, but man, yeah, I've never seen either of them.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of fun. My uncle and I are big film buffs, so every once in a while when we watch a movie, it's just recitation of ridiculous stuff. It's like when they had that special re-release of Transformers the movie in theaters. The 2 of us went together. And because it's a movie theater, we weren't talking, but we were sitting there pantomiming and play acting for no reason, just for giggles,
Nice.
I mean, as a footnote, Dan Aykroyd is a bit of a serious occultist.
Yeah.
So he purposely put a lot of stuff into this. And if you can get like scraps of some of the scripts that he's kind of thrown around, trying to get Bill Murray involved into it, especially the script From Hell, or actually just Ghostbusters Go to Hell, then you're in for a good time. And they've managed to even sneak a lot of this stuff into the animated series.
All right.
Yeah, so cool.
As a matter of fact, Jesse, I'm supposed to see you like this May for Ontario Comic Con Revolution.
That's still on the table.
Okay. If we do, bring a copy of Transformers the movie. We're going to have some fun.
VHS or Blu-ray?
Blu-ray. I'm not a Philistine.
And I'm not joking. I have both.
I know you're not. I'm not a Philistine. The subject of this week...
That's for the audience.
The subject of this week is DC Comics Heroes in Crisis. Issues 1 through 4 are what's available currently. It is an ongoing event in DC, but before that, we're going to get to the news of the past week. And first off is Marvel comic news. This is the grouping of stories that are not rumors that are about Marvel comics. And first of all, Marvel editor-in-chief C.B. Cebulski has decided to address something that's been irking people since last July, really, about Marvel. I don't know if you guys recall, but 2 X-Men were supposed to get married, and then 2 others did.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
This was in last summer's X-Men Gold number 30, written by Mark Guggenheim, and the art was by David Marquez. It was probably the biggest swerve in Marvel Comics for the past few years, and it wasn't one that made a lot of people happy.
I was okay with it.
It turns out originally, Shadowcat and Colossus were supposed to get married.
Mm-hmm.
But
During the This Week in Marvel podcast, C.B. Cebulski said that the original plan was to follow through with the intentions to have Peter Rasputin and Catherine Pryde get married.
look at you all official and stuff.
There were a few... Well, some people don't know those names. It's not like... I mean, even in X-Men today, a lot of people refer to her as Kitty, not Shadowcat. But anyway... C.B. Cebulski expanded on this and said, quote, "We were moving on to the next topic, and it was Donny Cates who said, 'You know what, guys, wait. What if?' And he's the one who threw it out there. As we percolated on it for a while, we ran it by Mark Guggenheim, who was like, 'That would be absolutely amazing, but can we keep it a secret?' And we worked on all the magic based on one idea where a creator just threw it out secondhand at a retreat, and it changed the course of the X-Men publishing plan for 6, 7, 8 months," unquote.
It's not the first time that particular stunt has happened. Not the switch off, but the fact of them having a writer's retreat and then somebody's completely throwing a fly in the ointment.
Yeah, and I mean, I admit, when it comes to the fan base, I'm probably in the minority. I don't think those 2 characters really belong with each other at this point. I think originally they were great, but they've grown to points where they're just very different individuals.
I think that you'll find every time they put those 2 in comics together, if they don't do something to address them, it feels awkward. And I guess that's just happened so often that they really just had to do something about it. I mean, it just seems natural to me. I guess maybe I'm seeing something different than you are.
Yeah, now they've made it more awkward.
I don't know about
Kitty
that.
Pryde is the supreme leader of the X-Men, and Colossus is a drunk.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, boy.
he is still doing that, isn't he?
Yes, he is. That's what happened
Yeah,
at the end of Astonishing X-Men. It's still unresolved.
That's right.
There is also going to be a new limited series centering on the former Titan of Marvel Comics, Thanos. And I say former because as of right now, he is still dead and about to be buried. But Marvel Comics has announced a Thanos limited series coming this April by Tini Howard, who worked on Marvel Knights 20th and Age of Conan, and artist Ariel Olivetti, who worked on Death of the Inhumans. This is supposed to chronicle the early days of the Mad Titan's relationship with his adoptive daughter, Gamora.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
According to writer Tini Howard, quote, "One of my favorite things about working with an existing character is confronting them in the narrative with the things we think about them when we're reading the stories. And Thanos is not okay. It's really not a secret to him. Thanos is brilliant. He knows he's crazy. But he's an insane person who is in charge of stuff, and that's pretty scary. But if everyone's too scared to ask him about it, and he's not going to admit it himself, what kind of person would get him to confront his own madness?" Unquote.
Well, I mean, I guess since it's in the consciousness of more than just the comic reader these days, I mean, Infinity War, a great majority of it was about Thanos' affection for his adopted daughter. So I can understand from, two aspects, from a business viewpoint and from, hey, I'm a new comic reader. I'm kind of curious about this.
Yeah, but I think that's the point that Howard was bringing up, though, was that's going to be Gamora's role in this, or a very young Gamora, to look up at this crazy guy and actually say, you know what, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And he still loves her, like, very vehemently, which is just even more bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when Thanos loves, everyone suffers.
Yeah. There were a couple of sisters who were writing Green Arrow for DC Comics, and they now find themselves writing Black Widow for Marvel Comics. These are the Soska sisters, Jen and Sylvia. And it's no secret that they were working on the new Black Widow series. However, they have decided to start dropping hints about what the storyline is going to be and what Natasha Romanoff is doing. And from the sounds of it, she's turning Madripoor into her personal hunting grounds.
Well, I'm hoping somebody will save Black Widow from complete mediocrity. I mean, what's the last Black Widow story you remember even reading, much less being important?
Her last solo series, where she was hunting down a telepath who had turned into a gang leader. It was movie-worthy writing. It was amazing stuff. And it came out in 2016, I believe?
Is that the one where one issue was nothing but action chase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never heard any reverberation from that at all. I've actually never heard of anything Marvel reverberating from.
It was a critically praised series. It ran 12 issues, but unfortunately it was cut short because this came out in the year prior to
Secret War?
Not Secret War. Gosh darn it, now I forget the name of it. It was the one with the Hydra cap.
Oh, God, I forget what the name of that thing is.
Yeah, Secret Empire.
Yeah.
It was Secret Empire, and because she died in that one, they cut the story short. So it was pretty much a self-contained year-long story. But the writers of this series, Jen and Soska, people were asking them questions, and they responded with a series of half answers. Sylvia said, quote, "She's a trained killer, and she's smart enough not to hurt people that don't deserve it. And Madripoor has a lot of people that really deserve it. People like Sabretooth," unquote.
Wait a minute.
And then her sister interjected with, "Sabretooth's a good guy now." So Sylvia continued, quote, "People like Baron Zemo. He's never good. Like, as soon as you see him there, you're like, I'm sure he's the villain of this," unquote. Then her sister interrupted again with, "I love Taskmaster. He's such a fun character because he's so ultimately capable, and he just throws it in everyone's face. He talks some very good trash."
Well, crap. You've already nailed down, 2 of my top 5 favorite villains in this?
Oh, and they weren't even done. And right after that, Sylvia continued with, "Yeah, and Madame Mask. It's almost like they're throwing a party for supervillains," unquote. So it sounds like the Black Widow is just going to go hunting for some of Marvel's biggest espionage and world-conquering supervillains in Madripoor. And
or it could be one hell of a twist, and she's teaming up with all of them.
And last time we saw Sabretooth, like you said in last week's episode, he'd just gone to hell, lost his mind, and now is running around all feral in the woods. So I guess that particular stage of his life is not going to last very long, which is good.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, Madripoor is a fictional South Pacific island nation in Marvel Comics that in recent years has more or less been turned into a supervillain superstate. The sisters decided to continue about how they came up with this concept, and Jen started with, quote, "We came up with this pitch that we thought was too much. And for a moment, it was set aside and it was told, it's brilliant, but it's just not right now," unquote. Oh, I'm sorry. And then she continues, quote, "And then editor Jake Thomas came back and said, we're doing the Black Widow story, but we're going to have some changes. And I thought, oh, we're going to tone it down. We're not going to kill this person or that person." And he's like, "No, Nat's dead. She's a clone now." He said, "We want her to go far as you'd like," unquote.
Wait.
Oh, damn.
A clone?
So you didn't hear how she returned from Secret Empire?
I never found out.
Okay, so it turns out that the Red Room, after the Secret Empire, is one of the most highly active villainous kind of organizations left. All right, now that Hydra's fractured shield is pretty much destroyed, you see where this is going.
Yeah.
But the Red Room also had a protocol to bring back its assassins, and one of their operatives happens to like the Black Widow a lot. So the Red Room's protocol is basically to clone its operatives, and then once someone dies, they download their mind plus some extra algorithms to make them subservient to the Red Room. The
Dirty pair style.
Yeah, the Deep Mole deleted the extra algorithms and just brought back Natasha Romanoff as a whole individual with like the latest memories he could find for her.
I wonder if they actually took that from Adam Warren's last Dirty Pair story in Dark Horse.
I don't know. It's not anything I hadn't heard before. I'd never seen it in Marvel, so I was kind of surprised they used it. But it was pretty clear after that the Red Room is becoming very serious. There's actually a new Red Widow who is running the latest version of the Winter Guard, like the Russian Avengers. Nobody even knew she was running it until she started speaking. They weren't aware she could do that until late in an issue she appeared in.
Okay, well, if it's Sabretooth's in it, I'll check it out.
All right. Marvel is also hinting that the world is going to get worse for Daredevil after the Man Without Fear storyline. Chip Zdarsky and Mark Cicchetto will take over the character after The Man Without Fear wraps up, and according to the cover to issue 3, things are not going well. It looks like Daredevil has been shot by police.
I saw that. That's screwed up. But
that's strange. That's usually the place Spider-Man finds himself in as far as New York cops.
I think they're really talking more about police violence on people more than that. I mean, yeah, Spider-Man's had his run-in with the cops, but that's because he's been smeared.
I do think it's a bit deeper than that, because have you read the first issue of Man Without Fear?
No.
They appear to be re-examining the idea of a man without fear. The concept they seem to be coming up with is that when you're a man without fear, you're a man without regard for self, which is not entirely untrue. So it looks like they're trying to re-examine Daredevil as somebody who may actually, I don't want to say embraces his fears, but acknowledges them more to a serious degree. It's like this cover here, it just says Daredevil number 3, not the Man Without Fear, anywhere on this cover. So he may actually have to own up to some of the things that he's tried to disregard over his lifetime.
I thought they actually got rid of the Man Without Fear underscore on the title like years ago. Is that not the case?
Not as far as I know. I've seen the Man Without Fear in a number of covers when I'm trying to just flip through things. But it does seem like the Man Without Fear is reintroducing fear into Matt Murdock's life. Because, again, it's not finished. It's a 5-issue mini, but the way the first issue was laid out, they made it very clear that his propensity to act without fear, unfortunately, throws him into very dangerous and very damaging situations. So perhaps he's learning a little bit more self-preservation.
Yeah, maybe. Different angle.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
No, I mean, I'm always up for changes to characters. It tends to piss off long-term readers because we've had the discussion. When you change what somebody considers normal, they get angry. I get excited when things get flipped up on their heads and things turn around to something different.
No, I mean, I agree. I like change. It actually makes me kind of perk my head up, go, hey, what's going on over there?
Yeah.
Hey, I want to check that out. Okay. You know.
Speaking of change, the final story that I have for you in Marvel news, there is a Thor villain that has been reintroduced to his universe as of issue number 9. And this one has not been seen in quite a while.
Which one?
Oh.
His name is Cull Borson.
I don't know who that is.
Cull Borson was introduced in Marvel Comics just before the Fear Itself storyline. He is the Asgardian god of fear.
Oh, the serpent.
Yes. When he eats enough fear in Midgard or from other sources, he can transform into a giant serpent. Normally, he looks like a guy with a big black handlebar mustache, long black hair, fierce armor. He has actually been a security agent for Asgard during the Jane Foster era of Thor. And now it appears that he is on pretty good terms with Odin, who he tried to depose in Fear Itself, and they're using him as a spy.
Isn't he Odin's brother?
Technically, yes. Although my Norse mythology is a little bit weak, so I don't know if that is a classical tale or if that is a Marvel spin on things.
Probably a Marvel spin.
I think it's a Marvel spin.
I think you're right.
I'm pretty keen on Norse mythology.
So as of issue 9, they did not only did they establish him as a spy, but he is working directly for Odin.
Oh, I see. They're pulling the Asgard version of the old Mystique story.
Basically.
A bit, yeah, but considering he's the god of fear, there's no telling how long that'll last before he decides to pull something. It's the way these things tend to go. Even when writers have a good concept for a new direction for villainous characters, the next guy comes along, doesn't know much about it, doesn't really care, and undoes it. Like
Flip the
Mystique.
script.
And
Yeah,
that's where we
exactly.
get tropes from.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
From there, we'll bounce into DC comic news. These are the companies and characters owned by Warner Brothers and what they're up to now and in the near future. Remember last week we discussed the unusual potential spoiler in the discarded cover for issue number 7 of Heroes in Crisis?
Yeah.
Right, Poison Ivy.
Yes. And more specifically, the lightning bolt symbol.
Right.
But there is a potential cover to issue number 9 that has been released that may show even more.
Oh.
And I want you to brace yourself because I'm sending it to you guys in the chat right now, and it is a remarkable cover. Only because the art done in it is by Tom King himself.
Really?
Yeah, and he often apologizes for his art, and he apologized for this too. You can see a piece of paper with blood splatter on it, a crudely drawn stick figure Batman that just has the word bubble, "You're crazy."
Well,
Huh.
Yeah. And before you get too deep into this image, Tom King tweeted not long after he put this out, and he said, yes, it's a joke.
Oh, thank God.
I don't know if he just saw the prior stories and decided to throw this out just for the sake of making people disbelieve the prior one, or if he's joking. Knowing him is probably more of a joke.
Because I was already starting to analyze the damn picture.
Tom King's amusingly frank with everything.
He is also a
Totally
former
got
CIA psyop, so he tends to like to mess with people. Not to make them cry, he likes to throw out odd jokes that people tend to obsess over. I saw this, and I admit, it's not necessarily news, but it made me laugh. DC did announce a big partnership with Comixology, though.
really.
Yeah, you know how DC has its own streaming app where they put a number of their comic books?
Mm-hmm.
Currently available on Comixology Unlimited, you can find series such as All-Star Superman, Batman The Complete Hush, DC Universe Rebirth, Batman The Flash The Button Deluxe Edition, Watchmen #1, Aquaman The Trench, Wonder Woman The Lies, Action Comics 1000, Batman Year One, Flashpoint, Justice League Origin, Identity Crisis, Batman White Knight #1, Jeff Johns The Flash, Teen Titans Earth 1 Volume 1, and Superman The Rebirth.
Damn, these are some titles.
Yeah, these are some very strongly critically praised storylines. For a limited time, also available as Batman Earth 1 Volume 1 and Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 1. A number of DC's Vertigo imprint is also available, including V for Vendetta, Saga of Swamp Thing Book 1, John Constantine, Hellblazer Original Sins, Preacher Gone to Texas, The Sandman Preludes and Nocturnes, Transmetropolitan Back on the Street, and iZombie Dead to the World. And again, those aren't the limits of DC's collections. Those are just a few things available.
But good call on the Preacher.
At this time, Comixology hasn't, even though this partnerships have been announced, Comixology has not announced any increase in prices for now. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And that's a good way for DC to reach younger people, man. Comic readers are tending to move to digital platforms these days.
That's true. I did.
Bendis' Young Justice debuted that last week. I sat down and read the oversized issue.
How was it?
It's, I wouldn't say it's a home run, but it's a very solid start. It makes the characters feel refreshed. There's a lot going on, a few mysteries that aren't really detailed in the first issue. A couple original characters that have a pretty unique flavor to them.
Answer me this.
Okay.
Answer me this stuff. Is it a flashback? Is it self-contained universe? Is it a kids-only thing? Or
that's the part that has yet to be determined. Some people are calling it DC's answer to the Ultimate Universe simply because it seems to exist in a bubble, except the first enemies that show up are in Metropolis screaming that they want to fight Superman. They just happen to meet all these other characters instead.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is because of Superboy's retro 90s costume.
Well, that's because that's Connor Kent. That is the Superboy that originally wore that costume. He's reappeared. How he's done this is still a mystery. So that's not Chris grown up. That is Connor. Let me see. Bendis has a lot of enthusiasm for this. CBR pointed out how it's really strange for him to be as enamored with these characters as readers who grew up watching the heroes on Cartoon Network. And Bendis' response was, quote, "How dare you! You don't have to be in middle school to enjoy the original run of Young Justice or Teen Titans or Ultimate Spider-Man for that matter. You just have to be a fan of fun comics. I loved Young Justice, and I often referenced it in the actual pages of Ultimate Spider-Man. They all reflect the legacy of DC Comics, which reflects our world in a very unique way. I was stunned the franchise was available and so open for this kind of launch. These are all A-plus characters. Each one," unquote. And I have sat through his panels. Yes, he is a lot like that. He is a fanboy first.
It shows.
Every time I hear the words "How dare you," I'm always thinking of Employee of the Month. Dax Shepard sticks his head out, goes, "This is an '81 Honda. How dare you?"
No, I mean, he is a fanboy. I sat in one of his San Diego Comic-Con panel. No, WonderCon panels, actually. I was dressed up in my my modern Luke Cage outfit with a button-down shirt and a vest. I asked him a simple question. I told him some people would argue that your books are kind of word-heavy or dialogue-heavy, and people started to boo me, and I just said, it's not my quote. I'm just asking the question. How do you respond to those people? And to summarize his response, it was just basically, everybody has their own viewpoint. This is just how I write, and people are allowed to like what they like. So later on in the panel, as I'm typing down his response to post online, he just says, I like that you're all here. I can appreciate that. I know some of you think my books are too word-heavy, and he's staring at me from the podium when he says this. So he is a fanboy. He likes to play around with people. As a matter of fact, it's already been announced that Bendis is working on a Young Justice spin-off already with a major female creator, but he will not say who.
Is it Gail Simone?
He will not announce it. He put it on his Twitter as of January 3rd. Quote, "Amethyst has a major creator already signed on. This creator was my first and only pick for this project, and she said yes. But that announcement is for another day. That shows you how much DC Comics loves what we're building with Wonder Comics," unquote.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure top of the list is G. Willow Wilson.
It wouldn't surprise me, especially since Amethyst is one of those characters that is stuck in DC's D list, not because she sucks, but because it seems like every time she's introduced, so few people know about her that the books just don't sell and they fade away.
Well, I mean, God, Amethyst, the way they wrote her, the whole creation, it feels like it should have been an 80s cartoon. Mm-hmm. And it never was.
I do think the character was inspired by She-Ra. The two share a lot of design aesthetics and even some mission aesthetics when you really break it down. And even the modern version of Amethyst, when I first saw her, she reminds me of the new Netflix version of She-Ra. She's much thinner, although she's still armored. She's carrying this nasty, pink crystal broadsword. So there's a lot of parallels to be drawn there.
Interesting fact, Amethyst came out before She-Ra by 2 years.
Neat. Didn't know that.
Shows you what a toy line can do to make you remember something.
Right? Yeah, Amethyst came out in April of 83, and She-Ra was introduced in 85.
That was a good year, I'm just saying.
Well, Bendis' Wonder imprint has something else going for it. He's teasing that the Legion may reappear.
Oh?
Yeah, he's giving out some cryptic teases, including a tweet where Connor Kent Superboy was given a Legion flight ring. And all he says underneath it is, quote, just need to leave this here for a second. # Wonder Comics, unquote. So it appears that may be where the cult-loved Legion of superheroes may come back to DC Comics. And the Legion has a long and terrible history with DC.
Oh, it really does. And being a Legion fan when I was a kid, and just seeing them mess with my emotions over and over again is just debilitating. Now,
do you mind explaining the Legion for people? Because I don't think I would do it well. I pick up the occasional issues. I love the concept, but I don't know the history very well.
Okay, well, Legion of Superheroes spanned out in the 60s as kind of like a a way to showcase Superboy. I think at the time there were adventure comics, but the Legion of Superheroes, they're all teenagers, and they're in the 30th century, far in the future, where superheroes are like historic icons, right? But so yeah, that's the whole idea. Is the Legion of Superheroes. They're all teenagers. They all have to have a power that's unique to them. They're really kind of elitist about that. Of course, this is the idea of the 60s.
But aren't they also each representative of different planets?
Yes. How best do I say this? There's a lot of cool stuff about Legion of Superheroes that just kind of disappeared in the...
Well, I was going to say, I think the problem is the concept itself. In the 60s, it worked out fairly well because it is a bunch of teenage superheroes trying to protect the galaxy at large. And in the 60s, there was this very big up with youth sentiment, maybe because the World War II or the World War II generation was calming down and they had to hand it over to the next people. Mm-hmm. But once you take that concept out of the 60s, it does not age well because the 70s was more or less a more groovy, bit more cynical time. The 80s was a very cynical and very commercialized time. This whole community thing didn't work then. Then there was the 90s where everything was all pouches, small knees, and blood.
Yeah.
So I just don't think it's a concept that's aged well over time. Maybe Bendis has found a spin to allow this to exist in a modern era.
Legion of Superheroes has rebooted, I think, about 3-4 times.
Yeah.
Each time with the same concept of the heroes, but they're completely different. And I think during Final Crisis, they finally addressed this, and they had a miniseries which I absolutely loved, which was was it called The Crisis of Three Legions or something like that?
Yeah, they took the 3 different Legion continuities and honed it down to one roster made up of all 3. They didn't even bother to resolve the continuity. They just kind of said this is where it all ends, or not ends, where it all comes together. But unfortunately, it ended up pissing off all the longtime Legion readers because everybody had their favorite team out of these 3, and now you don't have that team. You just have bits of it. It's like telling everybody, okay, here's your favorite parts of it, and everybody just kind of threw it back and said, but I like the whole goddamn thing.
Right. I mean, I definitely had my favorites. Wildfire was definitely one of my favorites, and it probably that doesn't surprise me too much because I tend to like almost everything that Jerry Conway has made. Was it Jerry Conway made that guy, right?
I believe so. Wildfire was one of the 80s, I want to say, character creations.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting Jerry Conway mixed up with Dave Cockrum.
Oh, okay.
Who made all of the X-Men.
Yeah, he helped design the second generation X-Men.
Right. I guess I just like Dave Cockrum stuff.
All right. Well, before we get mired in that too far, Green Lantern #3, written by Grant Morrison, came out this past week, and it came out with a new name for the Green Lantern Corps that I'm sure Morrison himself enjoys, but I'm not sure it's going to stick.
Let me hear it.
Well, Morrison had Hal Jordan. He was confronting someone that looks suspiciously like the classic Old Testament white version of God, and even speaks in thous, thys, and mys.
Okay.
You know, and he's trying to confront this, I don't know, extra planar being for slavery and profit from slavery. But Hal Jordan introduces himself as, quote, I'm an officer in the Green Lantern Intergalactic Police Patrol, unquote. Which is a bit more wordy than Green Lantern Corps. I know that the words Green Lantern Corps sounds kind of military, even though the Green Lantern are a police force. Although Green Lantern Corps just rolls off better than Green Lantern Intergalactic Police Patrol. That sounds more like a security guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to stick.
Or Citizens on Patrol.
Yeah. It downplays the Green Lanterns because, again, I understand they're space cops, but they're so much more complicated and nuanced than that. They're peacekeepers, in certain cases they're occupiers, certain cases they're administrators. They're almost like jack of all trades. Some of them just have better specialties than others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
also, Green Lantern Intergalactic Police Patrol, if you hone that down to an acronym, it means GLIP, and I don't want to say, here come the GLIPs.
Yeah, no.
You know,
Why Why fix it if it's not broken?
Morrison has a habit of doing this, and sometimes it's to the betterment of things. Morrison's run on X-Men was redefining. He kind of tore off the secret identities of the X-Men in the school. It changed the dynamic so radically that it's almost like the X-Men had to really confront how people see them and how it affects their mission. It changed a lot. But Morrison in DC, he tends to move to these more religious iconography. It's like he always seems to write Superman as a pseudo Jesus. His crisis events, he involves things called laser skulls, which I know are very big to DC historians, but to me sound like an '80s nightmare, frankly. And it looks like he's doing the same thing with the Green Lantern. He's trying to deconstruct him, but we talked about the first issue that came out a few months ago. He made Hal Jordan into pretty much a modern Scott Pilgrim. He was just a slacker who was crashing on the couch of whichever woman he was sleeping with at the time because he was kicked out of the Green Lantern Corps and had no idea what to do with himself. So
what's Morrison doing about all the other corps? Because it just seems that after Johns, no one really did anything with them.
I don't really know, and I think that's a hole that DC accidentally found itself in, because the Sinestro Corps War, the Sinestro Corps War was a very interesting story among two parties that were almost each other's equals. But when you start to introduce 6 other Lantern Corps, that's an awful lot of people who are carrying essentially the same weapon. And now, add on to that Scott Snyder, who's introducing the Ultraviolet Lanterns, which are just like 4 or 5 more of the same general idea, just kind of different methodologies. So,
and I bet you're going to see that just disappear.
Yeah, I would be thrilled if it was just not talked about again, or at least half the corps just vanished, their members died or whatever. And I know that sounds morbid. It's just too much. It seems like every other problem, if it doesn't involve a ring slinger, it's not important.
Well, I for one love all the corps. The invisible ones, though, that's too much. We don't need that, and their introduction seemed almost anticlimactic. It's almost like it was completely unimportant.
Yeah, but that's not Morrison. That's Snyder's fault.
Yeah, I know it's a lot of people's fault, and you know who I blame.
Yeah, Morrison's a whole other kettle of fish to me, though. Last up in DC comic news, I have something very unfortunate to talk about.
Oh, no.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
There's a man who is a comic art consignment director for Pedigree Comics. His name is Rand Lawrence.
Okay.
He was robbed recently.
Okay.
Oh.
And his business wasn't robbed. His personal storage space was robbed.
Oh.
And he was robbed for $1.4 million in Detective Comics.
Ooh.
Well, not Detective Comics, DC Comics. He had an indoor storage unit in Boca Raton, Florida. He recently said, quote, "I probably had the worst day today that we all fear. 439 CGC-graded books were stolen from my indoor air-conditioned double-lock storage unit. As you all know me for many years, I've strived to put together the best Batman and Detective Comics collection out there. I've been #1 registered set on both titles for many years with CGC. I know that many of you have experienced items being stolen in the past, but for me, this is a first, and on such a high level, it's been devastating, as this collection was my nest egg. And I had worked so hard and done without for so long to put this together that it being taken away from me has left me in a very bad way," unquote. Fortunately, he does have an idea who took the books, but he also asked for help from the community, keeping watch for any big Batman and Detective comic books coming up for sale. The books that were taken, according to Liam, were the cream of the crop of his collection, probably valued at about $1.4 million. Some of the books we're talking about include issues of Batman #2.
Someone knew what they were doing.
Yeah, somebody was after very specific items, as much as they could carry, basically.
Yeah, because my next question was going to be, did they hit any of the other lockers? Was there cameras?
I don't know, but to steal $1.4 million in comics, you have to be somebody who knows something about comics or heard him talking enough about it. It's got to be somebody close.
And you got some inside information on where he kept his stash.
So that's, oh god, especially a double lock storage unit. If it was just somebody random, I don't think they'd go through the trouble of trying to crack 2 locks.
Oh,
I'm
hell no.
I'm really interested to see how that pans out.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's all I have on that story for now. Hopefully he gets I don't know. As fast as people can move comic books these days, I hope he gets at least the majority of it, if not all of it, back.
Does it mention about him being insured?
Not personally. He's a comics consignment art director. I imagine he has some level of that, but insurance will only pay you so much.
Yeah.
You know, certain policies have a high limit unless you're paying to insure each individual book, and it doesn't sound like he has the means to do that. He talked about going without to build this collection.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, keep us up to date on that one.
I'll look for any stories that come out about it. And last up is our general comic and convention news. This is where we talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world. And unfortunately, to start off, I have to talk about 2 deaths. One has already happened, one is very recent. And we'll start with the one that already happened. Stan Lee passed away late last year. However, there's an official Hollywood tribute that's going to go on Wednesday, January 30th. I would like to be in attendance, however, I need to save my sick days and vacation days for other projects that I already knew about. Mm-hmm. But on January 30th, it turns out it's not just going to be a celebration of his life, it's going to be a star-studded affair. It's being hosted by director Kevin Smith, and they're calling it Excelsior, a celebration of the amazing, fantastic, incredible, and uncanny life of Stan Lee. I assume Kevin Smith wrote the title. It's going to be held at the TCL Chinese Theater down on Hollywood Boulevard. All proceeds of the event will benefit the Hero Initiative. It's a charity dedicated to helping comic book creators in need. There will be several speakers at the event, an art exhibit, select costumes and props, a musical performance, and a moment of remembrance. After a red carpet arrival of guests, the private tribute will go inside the IMAX Theater. Smith is going to moderate conversations with Mark Hamill, Deadpool co-creator Rob Liefeld, Batman producer Michael Uslan, Daredevil star Vincent D'Onofrio, X-Men producer Tom DeSanto, and Wu-Tang Clan's RZA. Before you scoff, he's actually written comic books. The guy is a big nerd. The evening's going to be rounded off with video tributes and live performances of Lee's favorite music and poetry. That actually sounds like a really interesting day.
Yeah.
There were a limited number of tickets that went on sale last week. I didn't even bother simply because, again, sick days, and I was sure those would go so fast it'd be unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So, Smith said in a statement, quote, "Thank you, Stan, for making me not only the boy I was, but also the man I am today. You had great power and you always used it responsibly, fostering billions of dreamers who all know your name. A name written in the stars for all time. You were not just a literary titan of comic books. You were our modern-day Mark Twain," unquote.
Aw.
So that's going to be happening in a couple of weeks. I mean, it is still kind of shocking, probably because he died during the holiday season, and we all had so many other things to really process through our minds at that point.
Yeah.
And the scary thing is, I found out the day he died was my wedding anniversary, so I'm always going to be kind of melancholy.
Aw.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of freaky. The other death we need to talk about, unfortunately, is Ron Smith. Ron Smith he passed away at the age of 94. He had a long-time contribution to 2000 AD and Judge Dredd.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
He illustrated the character for a very long time in the British anthology series. He also helped create several characters and went on to become staples like Otto Sump. 2000 AD posted a tribute to the man, and they said, quote, "We are very sorry to hear that Judge Dredd artist Ron Smith has passed away. From co-creating Chopper to the weird Otto Sump and the wonderful Mayor Dave, he was an incredible artist with a career spanning decades. Our deepest sympathies to his family," unquote. I admit to not being able to read too much of his work. About the time Judge Dredd was really hitting a high note, I was still fairly young. I take it you guys weren't readers of his either.
No, and I'm not a big fan of ultraviolence.
It's just sorry to see him go. He helped make a character famous. You know, I would argue Judge Dredd isn't what he would be without it. WonderCon has announced 2 waves of special guests for its upcoming convention at the end of March 29th through 31st in Anaheim. Wave 1 includes the writer of Supergirl, Marvel Knights 20th, and live writer Vita Ayala, artist of Batman and Dark Knight's Metal, Greg Capullo, the author of Walkaway and In Real Life, Cory Doctorow, the artist on Supreme, Blue Rose, and All-Star Batman, Tula Lotay, The head of visual development for Marvel Studios, Ryan Meendering. And the writer on Batman, American Vampire, and Witches, Scott Snyder. That's all Wave 1. And unlike San Diego Comic-Con, they're not getting spotlight panels, but these people will appear as guests in panels and or do signings during the convention. Wave 2 of guests was a little bit more well-rounded. The artist on Mad Magazine and Gru the Wanderer, Sergio Aragonis. The artist on Blackbird, Black Panther, and America, Jen Bartel, will be there. I assume America, they meant Miss America. The writer on Venom, Cosmic Ghost Rider, and Redneck, Donnie Cates, will be there. The author on the Breakthrough series, Michael C. Grumley. The artist on Wonder Woman, The Brave and the Bold, and the Green Lantern, and the man we recently learned added an eagle to the tiara, Liam Sharp. And the writer of Detective Comics, Super Sons, and The Bridge, Peter J. Tomasi. That's a pretty good guest list already. There's a few people there I'd like to have a few minutes with. The creator of the Walking Dead series, Robert Kirkman, for some reason people are starting to ask him about concerns over repetitiveness in The Walking Dead. There was a letter from a disgruntled reader called Danny the MC in the back of Walking Dead 187, and he complained, quote, "There's only one plot in this book. Rick and company meet another group of people, a fight ensues, Rick and company win, that's it."
Yeah.
Kirkman decided to respond to Danny the MC, and he said, quote, "I've heard the, oh man, TWD just recycles the same story over and over again complaint many times, and you're not in the book anymore. That's fine. Stop. I completely understand. Some people aren't up for the long haul, but meeting new groups and getting into conflicts with them is every continuing story. It's every TV show. New enemies, new antagonists, new conflicts, and each of those conflicts are different in some way and result in characters learning new things and growing in new ways. The same way the same way the conflict with the Governor and Woodbury is completely different from the conflict with Negan and the Saviors. In almost every way. If you think those two huge storylines on there are the same, this book just isn't for you, and that's fine." Unquote. Wasn't expecting a stomping on the head. Danny the MC decided to point to Season 4 of AMC series in a plotline that saw Lizzie killing Mika. Kirkman also reminded him that the same storyline took place in the comics in a different way. So apparently Danny thinks he's a lot smarter than he really is.
Doesn't do enough research.
No. No, he does not. So, be that a lesson. If you decide to complain in his letter section, he might actually post it and smack you down. I've started to hear about a new comic studio called TKO Studios. And they apparently hope to change the model of comics distribution.
Oh?
Yeah, TKO Comics is starting off with a release of 4 miniseries, but instead of releasing them one issue at a time, they're releasing the entire miniseries at once.
Whoa. They're taking the Netflix approach.
Yeah, they are taking what they call the binge reading model. TKO Studios publisher and co-founder Se Chun, he talked about the philosophy recently of releasing full story arcs at once. And he said, quote, "One thing we kept hearing over and over again was when we started pitching them, the way we were going to binge release our books, offer the first issue free to read, and offer them in multiple formats. The thing that we kept on hearing was everyone wants something new to happen in comic books, but no one's done it yet." Unquote. I would say this is pretty new.
Yeah.
Also, from what I understand, the way they're releasing it, it sounds like they're doing it without Diamond. That's kind of a big thing. Diamond is pretty much the exclusive comics distributor of all print these days.
Didn't used to be like that.
No, it didn't. Diamond unfortunately ate its competition.
Yeah, I would like that competition to come back.
Yeah, well, TKO could be that competition. If they're going outside Diamond and still producing print comics, that would make them the outlier. And I'm not saying they're wrong for doing it. Goodness knows competition is always healthy. It's just kind of surprising that a studio has taken this format and not only just direct distributing, but also just saying, okay, here's our entire miniseries, enjoy. It's rather rare. Usually you have to wait for a graphic novel for that. And last up, when it comes to general comic news, I know that we mentioned it the last show, but I just want to make sure we're very clear. Gerard Way has announced about how much of Umbrella Academy he has left in him. As we discussed during our review last week, the Umbrella Academy is releasing the occasional volumes pretty much as Gerard Way has time to write them.
Mm-hmm.
And Way recently sat down with Collider and he said, quote, "What I did for Steve Blackman, the showrunner, and the writers in that first writer's room was to create an 18-page document that laid everything out. Even of the graphic novels that haven't come out yet, which should equal 8 when we're all done. So I gave them the blueprint for what happens because you do want to see certain things in the future for future series, and the hope is that it is a success so that you can do a lot more of these. They're very curious what Gabriel and I are doing next. We always send them the new comics. They really want to know what's happening," unquote. So apparently he has about 8 volumes left in the story of the Umbrella Academy.
I'm okay with that. That's a good number.
How many are out now? Like 5, 6?
3.
3. Oh, wow. Okay, that's appearing a lot slower than I thought.
Well, there was the single storyline for, about 8 years? Yeah, I remember he released it, and then he didn't release anything after that for quite some time.
Yeah, it turns out that the original ran from 2007 to 2008, won an Eisner for Best Finite or Limited Series. It's been followed by 2 more series. He followed it up fast in 2008 with Umbrella Academy Dallas, and then a decade later in 2018 with Umbrella Academy Hotel Oblivion.
Yeah.
So, took his sweet time over that one.
Yeah, exactly.
The subject of this week is DC Comics Heroes in Crisis. Heroes in Crisis is the current, not mega event, but a very interesting event going on in DC that has to do with how DC's Trinity, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, have set up a way for superheroes and anti-heroes to get therapy for those moments that truly traumatize them. And I guess technically supervillains too, since Kite Man was sent here at some point.
Really?
Yes, he's actually on the cover. The series is written by Tom King, the artist is Clay Mann, the colors are by Tomo Morey, the letters are by Clayton Cowles. And, no lie, ever since I read the original Vision miniseries, I'm a fan of Tom King. I've read the occasional issue of his Batman run, and I'm not a fan of Batman, but he makes the character interesting for the most part. The whole marriage thing still pisses me off, but that's another story. I also read the first half of his Mr. Miracle miniseries. I didn't dig that one as much. So when this was announced, it sounded like a very Tom King concept. Heroes getting therapy, and again, the man used to be a psyop in the CIA, so he tends to think about things very differently compared to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really surprised after the first issue. I was very much sucked into this story. I can sense a thought happening there, but it keeps stalling.
You open your mouth and brain wasn't in gear.
No, I slipped.
Well, I'm more than willing to get your opinions, because I know I have been vamping this basically since it came out.
Oh, no, I'm interested too, but I have a weird hang-up. It's like, but it's kind of a thing that's notorious with DC Comics and their bigger stories. Is something going to come out of this, or is this going to be another flash in the pan?
Well, I don't know about that.
It's hold my attention.
I don't know, because DC's continuity, even when they reboot things, they tend to muddle it up very quickly. I mean, Rebirth is a good example of that. Okay, we have a clean continuity, and we're mashing up with a post-crisis continuity. There we go. But King has started off telling a rather shocking tale here of a mass murder at Sanctuary. And as soon as the 2 primary suspects, Booster Gold and Harley Quinn, met each other at that diner, I was already intrigued as to what the frick could possibly be happening here.
Mm-hmm.
The very first things you see pretty much are Booster Gold looking like he had been through a war, sitting in a diner, and Harley Quinn staring at him through the window. And I especially love that very first panel of that man who's trying to drink his coffee and looks terrified as, the clown woman has her hands up on the glass trying to see inside and doesn't look very plussed. It even gets worse because right afterwards you see Harley Quinn's therapy session. And I don't know where I read it, but it was later explained to me that what's basically happening here is that the heroes, or the characters in therapy in front of the Sanctuary shield, is what I'll call that anyway, they're not actually speaking to anyone. They're speaking into a one-way mirror that has some kind of video recorder on the other side.
Mm.
So no one's asking them questions. They're just kind of forced to confront themselves right there and then. And, dude, Harley Quinn's 9 panels there about how wacky her life was and suddenly breaks down about what her life has become was, I don't know, a little wrenching.
Mm-hmm.
And then it flashes back to the diner again, where instead of confronting Booster Gold, Harley Quinn sits in the stool next to him, pulls out a menu, and makes an order.
Yeah, I like her little quip about, oh, what desserts do you have? And then they tell her, and she says, when the waitress goes back, she's like, can I tell you a secret? I don't like pudding. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that burns a little bit.
Is there gonna be a fight?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was kind of a subtle dig, and I can't even say as to what that was. I guess it was just King's attempt to separate things a little bit more from the classical view of Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever gonna see that again.
Oh, I seriously hope not. I mean,
Yeah.
the original version of the character, as fun as she was, she is basically she's a living case of Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah.
But the red streak we occasionally see across the sky is Superman at the current time trying to get to Sanctuary and what's left of it. The very first images of what could have happened there, and the remains of Blue Jay being eaten by crows.
That was hardcore.
Is that what that was?
Yes,
Yeah.
that little blue mask and that little bit of
Wow.
viscera, that was Blue Jay in his mini form or his body anyway, being eaten by crows.
As he's introduced, he is shown the door.
Yeah. Yeah, Blue Jay is one of those C-list heroes that has appeared very sporadically and helped to other characters and other heroes, but never really had a star of his own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the switchback, though, after his therapy session to Quinn finishing her pie and holding up that butter knife, there was some serious
good.
dementia in those eyes.
That's
Yeah.
gonna hurt.
And the scary thing was, at this point, there isn't even a clue as to why she's necessarily this angry. It took 2 issues before I understood why she could conceivably be this mad at anybody. She's been an anti-hero so long and been pulling her punches, this should not have been possible, but she went straight for murder.
Mm-hmm.
And then Booster Gold has to fight back with the abilities in his exosuit, and even then, she's not having it. She took the little bits of blood she'd already stabbed off of him and used it to paint marks under her eyes. She was definitely in hunter's mode.
Yeah, definitely war paint.
But flashing back to what is happening at the same time as the Trinity shows up at Sanctuary and the various bodies that are all around. It's kind of sad because a lot of these characters were characters I was used to thinking of as DC mainstays, especially Titans like Hotspot and Lagoon Boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are characters that kids would know if they were watching Young Justice these days. Shameless plug.
Out now on DC streaming.
And Citizen Steel, who appears every once in a while in Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh God, DC loves killing that character.
Don't they, though?
They really do. I mean, in the '80s, they killed him. I think in a particularly gory fashion. I think like they removed his stomach or something like that.
Ooh.
He got like
in
skeletonized or something.
In this book or in a prior one?
In a prior one, back during the Crisis on Infinite Earth, he took a hit. And I want to say that he took a hit that was so hard you could see his rib cage.
I could not say. I don't follow JSA's heroes very well. It's never been something that's, I don't know, caught my interest. I must say, though, I was really clued in as to how well King was going to write this when Booster flies Harley Quinn through the ceiling of this diner, saying that he's going to take her to the Hall of Justice, and Quinn's response is, "Whee!"
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a DBZA episode
Yeah.
when Goku gets smashed.
What did you all think of that moment when Superman pushed open the door to Sanctuary and found the bodies of Wally West and Roy Harper inside?
I was really hoping that it wasn't validating its reality. I don't want Wally to go. He just fucking got back.
Yeah.
And it was painful. To see them just toss him away after they pulled the heartstrings to get him back.
I was waiting for the rub, honestly. I thought at least one of those characters would be hurt, not dead. I didn't expect both of them to be flatlines.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, though, it does address a little bit of something that I have with DC Comics, and that is DC tends to have redundancies for a lot of their characters. What I mean by redundancies is they tend to age the sidekicks very quickly, and all of a sudden they're standing toe-to-toe with the heroes, but often when those heroes take over the mantles, it's undone very quickly. Wally West is kind of the outlier in that model.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does seem like DC needs to slim down its active roster a bit. I didn't expect it to come this way. The other thing that kind of clued me in, I mean, it was very obvious by the way Booster and Harley were fighting. Each of them thought that the other was responsible for what happened. I am still not convinced that Harley has done everything as possible, simply because something has taxed Booster's systems to the limit, and Booster on a good day can take on like Martian Manhunter and Superman enemies. His power suit is very good, so for her to outdo him like that, I don't know what she could have gotten into, but it's not being exhibited here. She's fighting Booster hand to hand with a butter knife, for crying out loud.
Well, later on, they explain that his suit is doing weird things. He doesn't know what the hell is going on.
Well, that's what I mean, though. His shields have been destroyed. What do you think? She swung her hammer really hard and broke his shields? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and they never bring up what actually happened.
Well, that is the problem. We still don't know what has happened over these 4 issues. We know a lot of people are dead, but we're still not very clear as to who or what specifically has done it.
Mm-hmm.
Even the nature of Sanctuary is very mysterious in this first issue. We know what his purpose is, but the first issue doesn't explain how it works. Although for Superman to stylize all the androids in this place after Ma and Pa Kent and Lana Lang is a little too creepy for me.
It
It
was
is.
a little creepy.
Yeah.
You know, he has some serious issues he's got to get through, and he needs to have a long talk with his wife. The image of the destroyed androids inside the living room with "the puddlers are all dead" written in the wall, apparently in blood. That almost seems like something the Joker would do.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, though, the splatter inside are all the android mechanism fluids, all in blues. Whoever wrote that wrote it in red. Somebody took the time to find blood and write it down. What do you think of the...
I'm sure that...
Sorry?
Huh? I'm not sure that's blood.
I'm fairly certain it is, based on what else has gone on so far.
I guess.
What did
Seems
you
more
guys
like
think of that
crayons.
first issue? Because I thought it set a hell of a tone for what comes afterwards.
Yeah, it was intense.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm just impatient. You know, when I see DC doing something like this, I mean, I'm like him. I'm like, is this going to be important, or are you wasting my time?
Tom King has a habit of seeding things through his miniseries. He likes to put down a lot of markers for you to follow, and I guess he's hoping for people's recall to be fairly strong, because a lot of things tend to be important later. You know, it's like Harley Quinn's madness all throughout the first issue was something that I knew she was capable of, but I still wasn't clear what touched her off until I opened up the second issue. And the very first set of panels is Poison Ivy's therapy session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and given the recent writings that say that the two of them have had, like, an off-the-page romantic history, it wasn't hard to figure out why she was so pissed at the person she thought killed everybody in Sanctuary. Let alone, for some reason, Quinn deciding to try to be cute throughout Ivy's therapy session there. And I guess Ivy is another one of those characters I thought could be taken offline for a while. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but it does seem like most of the Batman writers have plumbed the depths of what the character is capable of for the time being. It always worries me when characters are left around because then they always turn into jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Like Demolition Man over in Marvel.
Ah, poor Demolition Man. They did not help situation with him when they turned him gay.
No. Or or a drug addict.
Well, when they got one side, it's like, oh, hey, cool, inclusivity, representation. And it's like, but you chose D-Man to showcase this? Yeah.
Yeah. And I gotta hand it to King. The second issue did nothing but add to the set of mysteries going on here. Starting with Citizen Steel, whose body, once he activates it, is pretty much an organic metal, and he apparently died in this form. And what seems to have killed him is asphyxiation. Now, whether or not he actually died of that of what the object they found was, is a question. I can't say if he asphyxiated on the chattering teeth they found in his throat, or if they were placed there later. But that seems to be a pretty clear indication that Harley Quinn may be responsible for what's going on with everything else.
Yeah.
Or it was a misdirection by whoever or whatever killed them.
Which is another possibility, because after the recording of Batman's session, which in itself was really poignant for something that only had 2 panels of dialogue out of 9, I was a little bit thrown off when Skeets appeared to Booster Gold. Does anyone remember why?
When who appeared?
No.
Skeets. Booster Gold's little AI buddy?
Yeah, didn't Skeets have kind of a dark exit last time we saw him?
Oh, Skeets has a very dark thing going on. He was one of the characters that appeared in Bane's council at the end of Batman 50.
That's what I was thinking of. And I'm like, oh, okay. When's the payoff on that going to be?
Yeah, so when he appeared here, that my first thought was, okay, maybe Booster's been set up. I mean, I don't trust this thing at this point.
Yeah, me either.
And granted, King is writing both that issue of Batman and this. So I would like to think that this isn't a narrative mistake. He knows what he's doing here.
You think some of the what happened in that issue is finally coming to roost?
I don't know about coming to roost. This may be another part of Bane's plan to drive Batman a little crazier. A big mass murderer at something he helped build. But at the same time, it could also be that Skeets is running another independent agenda at this point.
Well, yeah, and we're also getting the reoccurring fact that this particular mystery is screwing with Batman, almost like he can't put his finger on it.
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed, though, was that Skeets was very much against Booster trying to investigate this matter.
Yeah.
He kept trying to convince him to just run. Which is a little bit uncharacteristic given the past, but I don't know how King is writing the character lately. Although Harley Quinn, now in one of her classic outfits because her current one was ruined, playing cards with a penguin. I had to read that a couple times.
Yeah.
Because that penguin actually looks like it's emoting to her, like it understands what it's doing, and it's just frustrating her. And they're playing Go Fish. But this is when the Trinity tracks down Harley Quinn. And Quinn's outmaneuvering of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, that was utterly incredible. She managed to basically make all 3 of them look slow by comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she got in close enough to Wonder Woman to get her hands on the lasso of truth, then wrap it around Batman's neck and threaten to snap it if Superman moves, and she has the reflexes to do it. And Wonder Woman's smart enough not to try it. And then before Superman can attempt to heat vision Quinn in some way, Quinn uses a lasso of truth to get Batman to tell her where he keeps the kryptonite in his utility belt.
After Batman said he doesn't have it.
Right.
Yeah, showcasing that Batman is willing to still lie about that shit.
Yes. Now, I know that CBR.com and a couple other places said after this issue that Harley Quinn has become a villain again. I don't think she's become a villain for several reasons.
No.
And we've probably covered them before, but it's worth repeating. One, Quinn often owns up to the weird things she does. When she kills somebody, she's pretty much upfront about it. I don't know if that's bragging necessarily, or if she just has this compunction to tell the truth and she doesn't want to be a super villain, but she often talks about what she does. And throughout the 2 issues, she keeps saying that Booster did it. She is very clear. Booster did it. Secondly, other than her attempt to kill what she perceives to be a killer, we haven't seen her actually try to murder anyone, including the Trinity, and she could have killed at least one of them before she left. And then finally, there's the fact that she's in her classic outfit. That's what a lot of people point to when they say she's a villain. You know, I seriously doubt that Penguin's going to have any of her current outfits ready to go for her when she shows up to one of his warehouses. He probably had some of her stuff in a box, but I doubt he had any of her modern stuff ready to go. So I think that suit was just what was convenient at the time.
Right.
I do need to ask, what were your opinions of the therapy sessions for the Trinity there? Because those were really something to read.
They were. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was. That's one of the things I was thinking about all day, was their sessions, and it seems like well, I'm looking at it from Tommy King's perspective, is he's using just some real life analogs for all of these guys, where Batman's a drill sergeant, Superman is a undercover agent, and Wonder Woman is just a badass who has some issues to deal with. I was just running that through my mind all day.
Well, I think he's going through the work to make them people. A
Yes.
lot of DC writers go out of their way to make most of their main heroes into just larger-than-life figures and, you know, not necessarily human beings anymore. King has kind of broken them down to the point where each of them does have their foibles, their flaws, and the things they hide from the world, and he's found a way to have them talk about it for at least a few frames.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. I generally don't like the Trinity as a person or as a concept, just because they are so far beyond humanity in most respects. It's not that fun for me to read them. You know, even Batman, who has no powers, he's crazy.
Yes.
And I mean that, like, literally. He is just crazy. But at the same time, those few moments where he acknowledged that he works with young people and he often gets them killed, it's like, oh my god, he can see his insanity.
Yeah. That was insightful and kind of gut-wrenching.
Speaking of gut-wrenching, how about Booster trying to enlist the Flash's help to investigate the murders at Sanctuary?
Oh, that was heated.
Yeah. You need to explain things real fast before he starts swinging.
Yeah, because damn, he was back and ready to go.
Well, not just that. I mean, Booster pretty much told Barry about the death of his, you know, sidekick, pseudo-partner, pseudo-son, with about all the delicacy of a brick to the face.
And like I said before, just as he got reintroduced to him.
Yeah. And, of course, there's Skeets. You know, between Booster and Skeets, it was almost like a who's on first scenario. Oh, you know, everyone who was there when Harley, Booster, or maybe I, Booster, he doesn't know, killed everybody. Shut up! Like Arsenal, shut up. Blue Jay, please shut up. Ivy, now! Shut up now! Wally.
Yeah.
Where's he going? Oh, I don't know, Booster. Perhaps to find Wally, confirm he's dead, and also to see if any evidence on him points to you as the killer. Oh. And how long do you think that'll take? Well, he's the fastest man alive, so probably not long.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the next frame. Yep, here comes the hurt.
Yeah. And it's kind of amazing that this is what really allows Harley Quinn to get away, because Superman hears the hurt and the punches, and it has to go stop the Flash from killing Booster Gold.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was Harley's small memorial to Ivy on top of one of the bridges at Gotham.
Yeah.
And then the revelation that someone is sending the recordings from Sanctuary to Lois Lane and posting them online.
Ah, Jesus.
Which is a break of Sanctuary's policy, because the place is designed to record enough information for therapy, and then it's supposed to delete the large majority of it.
So they say.
So they say, but then again, these systems were designed by Batman, and he tends to keep secrets from everybody, or collect secrets about everybody.
Yeah, and they even addressed that, and he's like, "No, I don't have any kryptonite in my belt." And then, what is it? Is it the next issue
Harley.
even?
It's the same
Yeah.
issue, third pouch from the left.
Yeah, and of course she's got the lasso around his neck. It's like, damn it, Batman, we've been over this.
See, that's the other reason why I think Quinn believes what she says when she says Booster did it, because when she whispered it to Wonder Woman, her fingers were on the lasso of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But here's the thing. Here's what has been eating at me.
Mhm.
Both of them believe that they saw the other one, and they went over this with Booster Gold. He believes that he saw what he saw.
yeah, and he also
That's
had the lasso
he's
of truth
lying.
around him when he said it, I believe.
Right. They could have both been hallucinating. It could have been maybe memory manipulation. It
Or
could have been
it could have been the
There's
place.
a hologram.
There's a number of things that could have make it so
Right.
that they both believe what they believe.
But my
I don't
problem
know.
with the Justice League is they're treating them both as they're guilty until proven innocent. Where's the justice in that? I'm just saying.
All I'm saying is you got the technology and input of all three of the biggest superheroes in DC Universe in this place.
Hmm.
And our biggest problem is two people's perspectives.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
you know what? I'd say they could have
They-
used
they
some
go-
help. I think they could have used some help from Mr. Miracle to make sure that nobody could just like find their way to, in, or out of this place.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
would say the counter this they're guilty first is they're all holding back when they confront Harley Quinn.
Mhm.
Well, there's another aspect to that though, because you have two individuals that if you think there's a small possibility that they've done this, they could be very dangerous individuals in a heartbeat.
Yes.
Right.
And the other one who's acted aggressively to you're guilty first was Wally West, but Barry, and he's known to be emotional compared to everyone
Just
else.
a little bit. I mean, can we just point back to Flashpoint? He overreacted just a little bit, don't you think?
Or we could point to every season of The Flash,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's neither here nor there. Issue number 3, though, as many mysteries as still existed, issue 3 helped crystallize quite a bit in a very short amount of time. Especially when it comes to the policies of Sanctuary, the technology of Sanctuary, and how much this place could conceivably help quite a few people. And also, the other thing it did was it helped lay out to me how much of DC's history is actually intact. What happened to Lagoon Boy was like 2 continuities ago.
Hmm.
There was a very short Titans East team. And I say very short because they lasted an annual before most of them were killed and or incapacitated.
Hmm.
This is where Power Boy died. I forget whose hands they died, but somebody ran through them. And I mean, like, in a course of a few seconds. I thought Lagoon Boy was dead. Before, I mean.
Yeah.
But it turned out he survived the impaling, and he talks a lot about that moment. Wally West, Wally West's story is kind of sad because he really doesn't even understand what his problem is until the very end.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still holding out that. Well, okay. Here's what I have to say about this. Arsenal, I could see being dead for a long time. I don't really care. Roy, whatever. Wally West, damn, that's painful because I still could see that happening and being pissed off for years. But then when they did it to Poison Ivy, I'm like, okay, no, I'm not buying this.
Like I said, I do only because I think we've seen just about every permutation of Poison Ivy that modern writers have. I think she needs to be shelved for a little while.
I don't think she ever will.
All
Batman villains don't have a tendency to stay on shelves very long.
Well, you have the same writer working on both this and the regular Batman series, and he has a 104-issue plan. I think she'll be gone for quite a bit.
I don't know.
Lagoon Boy, though, all the images of him repeatedly getting shot in the gut because he remembers what it was like to be impaled, and he's having nightmares about it. It freaks him out. That's very understandable. He's still technically very young compared to most of the others here.
Yeah.
Wally West, his sadness, though, reliving prior continuities thanks to Sanctuary's holographic capabilities.
Yeah.
And the family that he can't have right now.
They really need to resolve that shit. Well, I guess they need to bring it
Yeah,
back.
they did pretty well resolve that shit, like, right here and now.
Yeah.
And then Booster has no concept as to what he's upset about. I mean,
I do like the fact that they brought this. They've used this as an opportunity to bring Booster and Blue Beetle back together.
Mm-hmm. Although they still haven't explained how he's back.
No, and it's one of those things. You ever see those movies where the loved one comes back and the other person just freaks out because, oh my God, they're alive, and they haven't really conceptualized how absolutely impossible it is for them to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's how I am after seeing Blue Beetle show up in this comic. I'm like, damn, cool, let's do it, blue and gold, yoo-hoo, I'm all in it,
See, the odd thing is, I think you and I had a very different response to this particular issue, because I didn't feel much about Wally West or Roy Harper being gone. I mean, as much as they've been major parts of DC, it goes back to my argument about the multiple redundancies that DC has for most of its legacy-style heroes. Mm-hmm. And also, I think DC kind of wrote itself into a corner when they brought back the original Wally West while still having this new version of Wally West running around. It's a bit confusing. But then you go to what happened to Lagoon Boy. I almost rolled a tear at that one, man. He spent all this time throughout this flashback issue getting hit in the torso with a beam, replicating the time he was run through with it. And just as he's processing the bodies in front of him, some kind of sharp object just goes straight through his torso, and he dies laughing at the irony.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is intensely sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wally West realizing just before his head is caved in, he just doesn't want to be alone.
I just don't buy that. But then again, I've already said that ad nauseum.
I just don't buy that that's Quinn. That doesn't seem her speed.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And also the reaction of "I didn't know you were here" to Booster Gold. It's I don't know. She didn't lead off with any kind of pun or joke. She just seemed kind of astonished to see him. But then again, we've covered that Quinn is very clear she saw Booster Gold killing people. Booster has a big memory gap about whatever happened during a lot of the deaths at Sanctuary. But that final page, when they showed the list of characters or additional characters that have died there: Commander Steel, Gunfire, the original Tattooed Man, one of the Teen Titans, Nyark, a second one, Red Devil, Protector, Poison Ivy, Solstice, and Nemesis.
I remember Gunfire.
Yeah, I mean, he is the gun, is basically his power. He kind of points his fingers and fires things from them.
He was kind of ridiculous. I don't think we're ever going to see him again.
More or less, but I mean, Red Devil, I enjoyed his run in the third volume of Teen Titans. I'm sorrowful for that.
I thought he was gone years ago.
Yeah, I don't know Protector. Poison Ivy we've covered. Solstice was in the latest volume of Teen Titans, the New 52 version.
Yeah.
Nemesis never really had much of a feeling for one way or the other.
I was a fan of Nemesis when I was a kid. Just because I thought his design looked cool.
Okay.
I even made my own Marvel version of Nemesis. So he had all just the right power to confront what he was facing, based off of the Nemesis power itself from the old TSR Marvel Superheroes RPG set.
Okay. It's more than I know
reference.
About it. Issue number 4 opens with a very sorrowful Tempest drinking to the Fallen. Although Donna Troy having to pick him up and carry him home, it almost seemed like a moment of comedy in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
Especially with the mural she's walking across.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the mural.
The mural was a cute, not in-joke, but Easter egg.
Mm-hmm.
But I also liked Donna Troy's therapy session. It's very interesting when she talks about mythology and how she may be related to it, but she's never quite sure what she is. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a lot of the writers that have used her over the past few decades.
Yeah, you know what? I read that, and wow, they totally nailed her very origin right on the nose. Because Donna Troy really does exist because of a confusion between two writers about her existing.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I mean, King just laid it out in these 9 panels that he gave her an origin and no origin. He used the parable of the legend of Troy, which no one in this world basically is entirely sure existed or not, and basically overlaid it on Donna Troy and explained her.
Yeah.
Well, I also think this is pulling additional duty, kind of showcasing what's being told may not be the truth or be real at all.
Yeah.
A la, Booster Gold and Harley Quinn.
Yeah, which is further exacerbated in the very next page when the 2 biggest detectives in DC Comics, Barry Allen and Bruce Wayne, are working that field in the murder scene, and the 2 of them have come to the opposite conclusions as to which one of their suspects did this.
Yep.
I especially think it was laid out well right after they each say a name, then they look at each other and Barry just says, "Fuck!" So yeah, Booster now has it.
Admittedly, I think, consider who they both named, they're a bit biased.
A little bit, yeah. I'm sure Barry wanted to be Booster, so he feels better about nearly knocking his head off, and you know how Batman is. Everything revolves around him somehow. But Booster has his own turn holding on to the lasso of truth and says very clearly that Harley Quinn did it. And I still lean back on Jesse's idea that if Sanctuary itself wasn't using its holograms to kill them, somebody else was manipulating it to do so.
Yeah, or Sanctuary itself is doing it.
It's a very solid explanation as to the how, if not the who.
Yeah. Part of me, back then when we saw the Poison Ivy's interview, or confession, made me think, is that the real Harley Quinn poking at Ivy?
That's an excellent question.
We saw Booster Gold, having a discussion with himself.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Then there's a little bit about the conundrum of Lois Lane and what she should do about all the information she's gathering and whether or not someone else will report it. But I was actually more thrown by the 9 panels of Batgirl's confessional.
Yeah.
And she doesn't say anything. She just takes off her utility belt, pulls down her tights just a little bit to her hips, and shows off the infamous Killing Joke bullet wound.
That had me choked up.
It really did.
Especially the exit wound with her spine that, paralyzed her. Took her off of the team, and then she came back and, if anyone knows, was Oracle.
But isn't that just the central, the central symbolism of everything she's gone through in her life and all of the trauma she's experienced, though?
It is literally her scar.
And as much as I know that's an in-canon story, as soon as I saw that, I leaned back in my chair and I just remember muttering to myself, fucking asshole writers.
Those ninjas with onions, right?
Seriously. No, I don't even mean Tom King writing this story. I mean the ones that wrote that demented Killing Joke. I mean, that was sick.
I'm still not over the trauma from that. I was not okay after that.
Or how tone deaf some of the
fallout.
Well, no, some of the follow-ups that have occurred since then.
Are you talking about that animated thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
the very next panel, it's Batgirl who's tracked down Harley Quinn, apparently in an old house of mirrors. And I was really amazed the direction King went here, because Batgirl is often written as, I don't even want to say a pseudo-Batman. It's like someone that follows in his footsteps but not his path. She usually figures out the same conclusions, just goes about things in a bit less brutal and dramatic of a way. But in this case, King has written her to the more compassionate version of the Bat family. She doesn't want to just drag Harley Quinn in by her hair and find out what's going on. She actually wants to seek the truth.
And didn't she work with Harley Quinn in one of the Birds of Prey's series?
The 2 of them have a very on-again, off-again relationship. They only work together as long as basically Harley is entertained. When Harley feels the wind blow a certain direction, that's where she heads. The Suicide Squad often aligns with what she likes to do because she gets to hurt people, but she doesn't have to get arrested for it. And then there's her regular series, which is pretty much Deadpool with boobs.
Who did she? Who did Harley Quinn confess to that she had a daughter with the Joker?
That was the Injustice universe. That is not canon.
I was just gonna say
Okay.
I didn't think that was canon at all.
Okay.
No.
No question to ask.
Yeah, but there's been so many retcons, it could have been.
Right, and there's genuinely people who don't know.
Yeah, and the dialogue in this particular page, when the two of their hands are meeting and Batgirl's hands are slowly changing from defense to just wrapping up Harley's and trying to say, I'm trying to help. The dialogue is very long, but it's very heartfelt.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Not just about her motivations, but the fact that she is convinced that the others are just going to hunt you down, beat the crap out of you, and then maybe try and find the truth. Instead, she wants to find the truth first.
Mm-hmm. And that was tender. That showed her sense of mercy over her sense of justice. Unlike Batman, he had a lot of gray area, but
Yeah.
I liked that scene.
I think King took certain beats from Sean Murphy's White Knight miniseries over in the Black Comics, because Murphy had the same kind of writing for Barbara Gordon. He wrote her as the emotional center and the one that tends to be the sin eater of the Bat family, as well as the one who tends to think before she throws the kick.
Right.
Meanwhile, there's another pseudo-memorial going on for Roy Harper, which I'm not quite sure how to feel about that. The Green Arrow sticking Roy's trucker hat to an arrow and firing it into the ocean.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah. It's a little poignant, but still weird.
I don't know about it being weird. It seems
I don't know.
appropriate.
It seems appropriate for Oliver Queen with all the
And
inner gadget arrows he has.
he's definitely not the most empathic character, nor is he, the most compassionate.
What, Oliver Queen? Are you kidding me?
No.
Well, Oliver Queen is practically the liberal of the DC universe.
A liberal doesn't mean compassionate, though.
Oh, pfft. Never
He's
mind.
a cynic, but and he kind of speaks his mind, whether you like it or not.
And?
That's all I got.
Yeah. Trying to not have a political discussion on a comic book podcast. Moving on.
What? A liberal doesn't mean compassionate. I've
There
met
you
people...
go, doubling down.
No,
Move
I'm
on.
very serious about that. I've met people who are very liberal but will scream at me just because I don't have a particular view on gender rights. And I don't mean a generous view. I just mean I don't have a particular view.
I'm going to say something completely obscene so we can just delete this scene and go back.
No, come at me,
No,
motherfucker.
it's okay. Skip forward, shall we?
God.
Moving right along. Follow the bouncing ball.
But I did really enjoy Black Canary's confessional.
Yeah.
What, all three panels?
Yeah. She just sat there, stared at herself for a sec, said, "Oh, fuck this," and left.
Mhm.
That's as complicated as it got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I admit, though, when Ted Kord appeared to Booster Gold in the cell of the Hall of Justice, I wasn't convinced he was real. I thought he might have been hallucinating.
It occurred to me as well, but then, there's a lot of indications he's really there and he's really doing his thing.
Well, I mean, the Beetle ship came in. That's a pretty clear indication.
Yeah, that was kind of my first click.
Ted Kord died as a result of the Infinite Crisis, and he's been back very sparingly since then in DC's Rebirth continuity.
Mhm.
I don't even remember where he first appeared. I know he was mentoring someone, maybe it was Jaime Reyes, but I don't recall the specifics.
I don't either, but I do remember him showing up in that. But
Yeah. I don't think
honestly
I think this
Ow.
is the first time he's shown up in costume in the Rebirth, though.
Well, I know that the Blue Beetle movie that they've been talking about, everybody has also been pointing out the fact they want, or the fact that Ted Kord is going to be a part of that. And that was kind of my first inclination that, oh, okay, well, that's a thing now.
I can never tell how media spills into comic books, though.
Yeah.
Ted Kord has his own confessional where basically he professes his trust of Booster. And then it comes out that Lois Lane has been forced to write a report on Sanctuary only because she has all this information. And if she doesn't, someone possibly less compassionate towards superheroes and what they do will probably write it anyway.
Yeah, and not be as clandestine about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I don't like Superman as a character, but I did have to appreciate the Catch-22 he was in. Because he has to choose in that moment whether he's going to break the confidence of his wife or break the confidence of his colleagues. It's one or the other.
I really think he screwed up.
I think he was a damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah, it really was. And he has to live with one of them.
I don't know. That's a friendship-ending maneuver, airing that kind of shit.
It is. It is.
I think that's the point, though. I think that part of this miniseries appears to be, or at least the purpose of it appears to be, to fracture the Trinity and make their bonds a little weaker.
Maybe.
You know,
I don't want to
it's
about
kind
the
of
Trinity, honestly.
It's kind of been overdue. The Trinity has been a thing in DC for the last 15 years.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, on some level, pretty much forever.
Yeah. And then that last page of the two of Batgirl and Harley Quinn pretty much running through Gotham. And Batgirl finds out the report that everyone knows about Sanctuary, and she says, "This'll change, I don't know, the world?" And Harley's responsive, "Okay, good. Fuck the world. It needs changing."
I don't know if that's hyperbole or if that really means anything, hence the crisis word. Because every time DC likes to pull out crisis, it's usually a paradigm-shifting thing.
Yeah, and again, I hope it is a paradigm shifting thing. Otherwise, I don't want this to be another flash in the pan.
Yeah,
story.
I also hope they don't use the word crisis anymore. If there's a word that DC tends to overuse, well, two words. It's crisis and league.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they have a League of Shadows, a League of Assassins, a Justice League. I almost said Legion of Doom, but that's not quite there. And I'm sure there's a number of other things I've forgotten about. For a while, there was a Bet League during the Bet Noir miniseries. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Injustice League?
Thank you. You know, they do that a lot. And every time they try and do a world-changing event, somehow they work the word crisis into it. It makes it less iconic when you keep beating the horse.
Well, that's DC for you. In a nutshell.
Okay. Well, I don't know, Casey, do you want to start the summations on these 4 issues of half an event?
Half an event is what it was. And I still feel like I'm being jerked around. I know we're only 4 issues into this 8 series, but I mean, I need something. I need something to hold on to about this. Now, granted, I'll probably write it out because it's a mystery, and I want to see how it's going to handle. And if it makes a really cool change, cool. You know, DC is nothing if not changing. I just want something to stick. But okay, so I got 2 scores in my head. I got one if I think the story's going to go one way, and another if it's going to go the other. If they really killed Wally West in this story, I'm giving it a 2. Just because of how just completely detached whoever wrote this is from the pulse of what most readers want. And that's the reason why he got brought back in the first place. So, I mean, just to toss him away for this storyline, it's just a really big sticking point for me. Now, if I'm being jerked around, he's a red herring, and there's something big onto this, okay, cool. Let's remove him out of the whole situation. I like Booster Gold. I like the fact that DC uses Booster Gold and makes an effort to make him not a C-lister. But at the same time, kind of, tipping the hat to the fact that, hey, you're cool if you like Booster, and here we're going to reward you. I like that. I like Blue Beetle showing up in this. I'm glassy-eyed and, fan heartbeat going on there for that. So I got a lot of conflicts about this. And I guess to resolve it, I got to give it a 50-50, so I got to give it a 5.
Okay. Jesse?
Well, I'm not as attached to all these characters as Casey is.
Okay.
I am aware of a lot of what these characters are. I am of mixed minds. These versions was incredibly easy and quick to read. despite how wordy some of the panels can get. But I have been fully invested into this mystery, but at the same time, I was kind of wondering, where's this leading up to? I'm worried I'm going to get disappointed in the third act, like so many DC events have done to me.
Okay.
It sounds like you have the same level of apprehension I do, but for different reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a bit more hard on your sleeve. I'm a bit more repeat offender.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For now, as it's presented to me, I have to give this. Shoot, I give this an 8 right now.
All right, Joanna.
Well, I love a good mystery, so it has that going for it. I don't think anyone touched on the artwork because we're so caught up on what happened, who done it.
And actually, most of it's been actually done by 2 people.
Really, it's really good. I've enjoyed it. So it's compelling because it's the tantalizing mystery. You want to know who to pin the blame on for all these murders because you're angry about all these deaths and you want to know. And I think that drives the story even more. So for sake of compelling, I'm not going to hold, their deaths against them, but I would give it a 9. It's fascinating. It's tragic. You see raw emotion in the interviews, but it's pretty good read so far. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's resolved.
Yeah, the main art is done by Clayman in this series. Small bits of it are done by Travis Moore and Lee Weeks. And I do like the visuals in it. Despite a lot of the scenarios or backgrounds being in very sunny places, the whole thing has this very noir feeling to it. And I think it beats out the feeling of what I get generally in like most series that take place in Gotham. Somehow a lot of that feels more like like an open-air club or mosh pit. But you do get a sense of a lot of the dingier places where these characters are trying to solve a very strange mystery that's still unfolding. And I love the pacing. Sometimes the timeline can be a little bit back and forth depending upon, but I'm one of those people that enjoyed Memento as a film. I don't mind it when the timeline is a little bit muddy if it helps clear the picture. At the same time, Tom King, writing in these confessional scenarios, these 9 boxes where certain characters, both living and now deceased, have explained themselves and what their potential problems are, it helps humanize and it helps connect you to each and every character that have suffered at the hands of Sanctuary in one way or another.
All right.
It's like as a result of this, when I first saw Blue Jay's Mask, I thought, oh, that's gross. And then I saw the confessional, it's just like, oh my god, that's a guy that died.
Yeah.
And it just helps connect the whole thing together. And I do feel fully invested in this. I do like how King is laying out a mystery here in long, slow form. He's taking his time to make everything matter. And by the end of this, I had formed connections with characters I really didn't care about. Also, the use of Wally West and Roy Harper as like the central figures of those that have died, I thought that was an extremely strong choice. Not because I hate either character. As a matter of fact, I like them both. But I do think comic events tend to lean too much on killing C and sometimes B-list characters to create a sense of tension. Yeah, I mean, when somebody less central dies, it just doesn't seem to matter. When characters like Superman, Captain America, Cyclops dies, it has a big impact on what comes after, and I think Wally West and Roy Harper will have that impact.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's unfinished, but I like the vast majority of what I've seen so far in this. Other than a couple of art slips, it's been a really great ride, and I look forward to more. I'd give it a 9. So, I do have a few things in the hopper when it comes to the next few weeks. I still have the first volume of The Immortal Hulk, the more horrific version of the Hulk. I also have the first volume of Sunstone, a graphic novel by Stefan Sedgwick about 2 women who get into an S&M relationship. I know, but he's a writer that's been in KOTOR lately and an artist. I also have the first volume of Deadly Class and the first volume of 2018's X-23 series.
My vote is Deadly Class.
I would agree with Casey.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Then next week it'll be the first volume of Deadly Class, a series that is about to have a Netflix debut later this week. No, sci-fi. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard so far. I'm sure we're going to follow up with the second half of Heroes in Crisis after it finishes. Have a great one. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
I'm Casey.
And Jesse.
Take care, everybody.